A map of targets here in our country has just been revealed by a pro-Palestinian group, and they're starting with the Big Apple, New York City. Protesters are very frustrated that a ceasefire deal has not yet been reached with Israel, although it should be noted that the protests happening here at home, they're not as peaceful as we would want them to be.
Good morning. Yeah, the now removed social media posts calling for the protest and boycott of several New York City businesses and news organizations, claiming these places are helping to oppress the Palestinian people. Now, the pro-Palestinian group Within Our Lifetime says its post was removed by Instagram and Meta, but not before putting city leaders on high alert. New York City Councilman Keith Powers writing on X, "This is an unacceptable invitation to senseless violence. I strongly condemn it and have reached out to local NYPD." The group co-organized this rally held in New York City's Washington Square Park just yesterday. People chanting for a ceasefire and calling for the U.S. to end its aid to Israel. The protesters accusing Israel, the U.S., the press, and major corporations of spilling blood and helping to commit genocide against Palestinians. One of several protests the group has held throughout New York City. This one happening in Times Square on October 8th, not even a full 48 hours from the start of the surprise Hamas attack on Israel. Within Our Lifetime calls itself an anti-Zionist group and says it, quote, resist the Zionist occupation by any means necessary.
So what's in this map? Well, apparently it marks different newsrooms, businesses, and even landmark buildings as targets and have labeled them as enemies to Palestine and their people. The post, which has now been deleted, calls for some sort of direct action toward these places, but it doesn't necessarily say what kind of action that they're expecting people to take. Some lawmakers are saying that this is a clearly coded message for violence against the Jewish community, stuff that they say are making the rounds all over social media. Now, here's a question that I thought I would never have to ask you guys, but I got to keep it real. Should we as citizens of this country look to start preparing to defend ourselves from possible domestic attacks? I'm not saying this group, okay? I'm saying a completely different third party that may take advantage of all this chaos. Comment a quick yes or no down in the comment section, and while you guys are at it, make sure to share this video with all of your friends and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Appreciate that, you guys. So getting back to New York here, protesters recently barged into News Corp's Manhattan headquarters and pretty much took over the lobby while chanting "Free Palestine." The responses to these protests have literally been polarizing. Some are saying that they're doing the right thing, while others are saying that they're protesting in the wrong country, as the United States shouldn't even be involved in this war. But what do you guys think about this? 16 people were arrested with this protest, and it looks as if there's more to come, as this specific building was just one of those that were marked on the map that I told you guys about earlier. I mean, the protests are just happening one after another, and it seems like Democrats are getting a lot of backlash for not pushing for more of a ceasefire.
Today, protesters swarmed the Bank of New York. Well, just a borough over, Democrat Congressman Dan Goldman showed up to work this morning to find his office vandalized. Quote, blood on your hands splattered all over in graffiti. And when it's not their buildings, it's their politicians. While sipping on what we can only assume was some of the finest Cabernet, Liz Warren was hounded by protesters.
I need some water to get started. Of course, we have tap water. We also have bottled water. I have 60 members of my family killed over the last 5 weeks. I just don't know how many more have to die before you're going to call for a ceasefire. I don't know. What do you want to tell me? I mean, what do I have to do? How many more of my family have to die for you to call for a ceasefire? I don't know. Like, how much more do I have to say to call for a ceasefire? People in your office every day asking you to call for a ceasefire, and you are refusing to call for a ceasefire.
I guess the support of the Biden administration for Israel isn't getting them as much support as they thought. Although we're seeing a similar play being called for the president. I just can't put my finger on it, but maybe you guys can tell me in the comments. So get this, over 100 current and former White House staffers signed a letter, okay? They all signed this letter, and that letter supports the president's stance on the Israel-Hamas war. 127 signatures, folks. And I don't know, it sounds awfully similar to something that's already happened before. In fact, I think it also happened before the elections, right? Man, if only I could remember what happened then. For anybody who's new to the channel, of course, I know what happened. And yes, I can be a little bit sarcastic when things like these are pretty much slapped onto our faces as if we don't know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Now, look, this entire war is tearing the Democrats apart. And I guess this letter is trying to solidify that the president is making all the right choices. Heck, it even praises the more than $14 billion that they plan to send over to Israel. Do you guys agree about all of this money and weapons that we continue to send to this war? Comment a 1 if you do and a 2 if you don't. I know someone who might not be in favor of all of this. Ukraine's President Zelensky. He recently told reporters that their US stocks of 155mm rounds are running out fast. In fact, a report has shown that some of this ammo that was meant to be sent to the Ukraine initially has been rerouted to Israel, with the number of rounds estimated to be in the tens of thousands.
We're giving them equipment we have in our inventory that we haven't given to the Ukraine.
Is this in advance, though? Because we're talking about $14 billion on Capitol Hill. That would help to pay for some of this?
Yeah, I don't think it'll pay for the small, not small arms, but the Apache equipment, the munitions. The $14 billion for Israel, there's $3.4 billion of that for weapons, basically. $3 billion of that is for the Iron Dome. It's like 14,000 interceptors and like 100 more launchers, which means they could exponentially expand their current 10 battery arsenal over there, but quite a bit. These are talking about Army inventories, mostly Army equipment that the U.S. would eventually pay back through the other supplementals, I think. But what's on the Hill for Israel now is not reflected in my story today. The 30mm rounds, the Hellfires, those will be paid for later. Going forward, the money in the supplemental is for Iron Dome, David Sling Stunner missiles, and it's up to 100 launchers, which is a big deal. The Ukraine issue, total stop. The Pentagon right now has authority to spend $4.9 billion more in presidential drawdown packages. They have authority to do it, but they only have appropriations to spend $1 billion to replace that money.
Now, I guess Zelensky can better identify with Americans, because I've seen your comments, guys, and a lot of the biggest issues that you've had is that this government continues to send billions of our dollars, our taxpayer money, overseas. Meanwhile, households who are on SNAP, EBT, Social Security, SSI, SSDI, heck, even our veterans, VA benefits recipients, they continue to struggle. So yeah, I guess he knows how some of us feel. But what are your thoughts on all this? To be honest, guys, it feels as if we're dealing with every single problem in the world besides the problems in our own country. Do you guys feel the same way? Make sure you share your thoughts on this and everything else we talked about today down below. And before I go, I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out. Keep safe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.